This isn't a podcast on labeling product marketing. This is a podcast for product marketing managers who feel misunderstood internally.
Because building slide decks and writing copy is not all that we do.
So are today's product marketers actually marketers?
Do you feel that in 2023, almost 2024, there's still silos between marketing and sales?
Yeah.
I think that's just inherent with the job.
Really? Inherent with the job. I hate hearing that, but I'm going to agree with the outcome, and that's, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, cool. Happy that you guys agree. I would be a bit surprised if you folks disagree, but
I think that's why we're on this podcast today, because we agree with everything we say.
exactly. Yeah, please always agree with what I say.
We specifically said
be honest-
no guests on today's call because we all want to be in agreement. So
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
100%.
There's already enough conflict as there is between marketing and sales, so we just wanted to have a smooth ship for this one time being.
Love that thinking. The reason why I'm kind of bringing the subject is I've been in those shoes where I was a solo marketer at the startup. I was trying to do a good job, and like the quality of my job was based on leads, and the quality of the job of the sales teams was based on let's turn those leads into revenue, right? I'm seeing that this silo can actually create a big issue for PMMs. Sales don't understand the role of product marketing. And the easy instincts is to just put us in the marketing category. We all think in this podcast that we're not marketers. This is on the title. But I think that because they believe that we are in the marketing team, we don't have like the same level of understanding of the customer that they have.
mm-hmm.
In the sales team head, it's not always, oh, PMMs are the expert on the customers, right? So because of that, when we start going at them and, hey, I want to make your job easier, I will help you create a new deck. I will help you have this resource. I will help you do a better job of achieving quota and doing demos. We're already starting with a positioning of weaknesses because their understanding for us is, oh, it's just another marketer that is doing webinar and design stuff and doesn't understand the customers. I'll just pause here. Any thoughts on that?
One thing I wanted to add real quick is that, like, as part of like my consultancy, like I've had a chance to talk to like several sales leaders, and one common theme that from their perspective when they see marketing or like product marketing is like they feel there's a disconnect between the goals that marketing is tracked on and what sales is tracked on. So going back to the example, Gab, what you said is that, hey, marketing's focused on creating leads while sales wants to create revenue. And like one of the sales leaders I was talking to, he like runs a sales development team, and he said it. I'll have marketing come up to me and they said, hey, we hit our webinar goal. Like we got all the leads that delivered to you all. You guys go and close them. And then he'll be like, these webinar leads are not converting. So it's like, despite marketing hitting their goal, sales is left out to dry. And the last point I wanted to say is that I can understand as like a former salesperson, like why like sellers don't care about product marketers is that because like when you've got a quota to hit, it's like every second, every minute is focused on what can I do to make sure I get my job done. If it's not relevant to helping me hit quota, it's not worth my time.
And you've been in those shoes, so you understand it better than anyone. So I think that's a really great take. And based on that, I think the best way ultimately to define correctly the role of product marketing with sales is to go directly where the money is, and I mean the quota. So my solution is, if you want to elevate your authority with sales, and if you want to work with them and not looking as I'm the guy that does webinar with leads that don't convert, you should start by bringing value into their work. And to me, working in a business development agency, the best way to do that is to start with the outbound team. So I'm talking SDRs, I'm talking BDRs, And the method that I kind of started doing it is usually those professionals are just by themselves and trying to figure out how can I craft my emails, how can I craft my DMs and my messaging to resonate with prospects.
Yeah.
So it's a whole jungle because you by yourself don't always have the help of marketers or even product marketers. You need to figure that stuff out. So if you get started with helping them, hey, can we chat 1 hour every week and I'll help you get a better messaging out there and ultimately reach your quota. If a BDR or SDR tell you no, it's just because they don't want to work here. At least that's my take.
And I think that's a good point too, because what you're also seeing, or at least I'm seeing, I'm not going to say the rest of y'all are, but um, not just messaging via email or going the way of Sales Navigator and going LinkedIn, but doing the cold call, right? And it doesn't just have to be what type of email can I help you craft, but it's how, when you are talking on that cold call or potentially translate to a demo, are you actually bringing the value of our offering to the customer, or are you in feature land, right? Are you communicating our offering in a way that we would all agree that's different than the other 5, 10, 15 competitors they could be considering? And I think that was a really good point, Gab. Like, if you get in there and spend your time with that outbound team, that's kind of some quick wins and some things that they can use, I think, right away. So yeah, man. I wanted to take something, if you don't mind. I don't want to take away from any additional points. So you guys have anything you want to jump or piggyback off of that last one?
I was gonna add a few different things here. One is that like one thing that I found was very effective for me when I was working with like our smaller sales team, and this really depends on like the scale. This is not scalable if you have 70 sales reps in your organization, so don't do this. If you're in a startup, do this. Sit down with each sales rep and ask them like, hey, what are your top 5 most challenging deals right now? And when you have that conversation with them, ask them specifics like, hey, what do you need to help move this deal forward? And from my experience of working, it can always be like one of 3 things. It's like, hey, is there an asset that we can create? Is there like a one pager? Another piece is that, is there like a piece of knowledge that you need to know? Like, is there a way we can better differentiate what we're talking about? Is it like a competitive market intel too as well? Or is that like, are we targeting the right people? Are we putting the right people in front of you too? So by sitting down with them, that helps us get laser focused on like what are ways we can help these reps move the deal forward, and better positions you as like as a product marketer and more of a partner to help them move forward in these conversations too. From like a broader scale, let's say if you have a larger organization, what are some of the systems that you can plug and play right now? You can create like customer quote bank. That's money. If you can build out a customer quote bank and you can organize it based off of value props or different products, and you share it with the sales team, say, here's quotes that you can repurpose into your emails, you can repurpose into your like slide decks. Here's what if they're externally approved, you can use these in like your decks too as well. So thinking of like tools that can really expand your effort and reach, and that helps them like position them more as less as salespeople and more as like market advisors of understanding the market, then you're in there. That's just a little bit I've seen that's been effective in the past.
Would just like to jump on that, and I think it's a really good tip, especially like the bank of customer quotes, but also the idea of in a smaller org asking them what are the top 5 deals you're struggling with. I've been in larger orgs where it's more like everyone has a quota. I'm a PMM responsible of one line of product, and then I can see, okay, so who's under that quota, who's really struggling with the product, and then I can just offer, hey man, do you want to take, I don't know, half an hour and just do a mock demo with me just to see if you're up there with the top performer. It's, you're just giving out a hand, and then you're able to just challenge them and they will just come out being better salesmen. If you start with the outbound team Then you can move up to the AE and AM team, and ultimately you'll start having calls with sales leader in a really short amount of time.
Well, I've got a little incident that I think I can share that'll help bring this into focus, or at least my point a little bit. So, when I was a previous company, one of the things I didn't necessarily understand at the time, because I came from a different route, right? I came from manufacturing, not software, and we'd have these large group enablement sessions in person, hands-on training, right? Like literally hands-on the thing, and we do that for like hours. I mean, sometimes it would be multiple days of a session, right? And what I've learned that I didn't translate early on when I came to software is that repetition process, right? Just like our positioning, we can't just set it and forget it. You got to like keep going at it, right? And so I made this mistake early on when I first made my first battle cards, right? It was like everyone was so excited for these battle cards. They were dynamic. They weren't like, a PDF file that sat in the wasteland. And we launched them, and I'm looking at the usage rate and I'm like, what's going on here, right? Talking to the reps, they're saying, not really using it. And at the time I didn't know exactly why. And then of course, fast forward and a lot of other bumps and bruises, it's about getting them the right knowledge at the right time, right? We've already kind of talked about that. They've got a busy schedule and their mind's focused on quota, but then doing it over and over and over again until they come back to you and say, "Hey, I used that thing you did the other day," as opposed to, me getting on a gong call, watching it and being like, "Ah, didn't use that new messaging," right? And I think that's a really good way to influence and kind of make your mark on the sales team, is to not just treat them as like, "Hey, here's this thing, you should know this," but be understanding with them and say, "Hey, this is a tough concept. Let's keep attacking this until you're sick of it, or until you've grasped it, and it's kind of another mastered tool in your tool belt."
Yeah, I think it's a really good point that you're bringing. I want to create something of value, and then I'm looking at the data, if I have the data, even then. And it's kind of a nightmare. I took a lot of hours. I worked with a lot of people, a lot of stakeholders to push that live. And what I'm seeing is no one is using it. And I think it's all about creating a habit as well. So if you work with the top performers and you're able to kind of bring that idea of, hey, let's use this, let's do that, let's try this out with the deals that you're kind of unsure or idled in your overall pipeline, you will be able to ultimately see a difference. And if not, I will be your right arm every step of the way, ready to tweak stuff out to make it work.
Yep.
Like, it's my job. So we need to kind of change that narrative that I'm not pushing out there a webinar or a visual or whatever. And then I'm like, I don't understand why it didn't work. It's a lot about testing and not forgetting and being a broken record that we need to push that out there. And I feel like just by design, PMMs are not the type of getting bored of their campaigns. Like, we need to see enough roll out to ultimately take the right decisions on it.
I totally agree with you, man. And I see this more and more, almost, if you think about all of the work we do, and this leads into another point I had, but a lot of the work that we do is kind of thankless, right? Like, let's say I need that slide deck by the end of the day, right? We put all this effort, all this time, and all this passion into that slide deck. We ask them on Monday after their sales call, "How was it?" They're like, "Oh, I didn't end up using it." Right? And so naturally, I think as humans, we want to create those silos, right? Like, oh, next time sales needs something, they're not going to use it anyways. So why put that same level of effort, same level of intensity? And I think it just falls back to that point of like, they got that presentation. You may have made that presentation on Friday, delivered it to them on Friday. They had their weekend. You've had no real enablement session with them, right? And now they're supposed to go articulate that conversation in that slide deck on that Monday call. And I see that, I've done it. I know others do it. And I think that's one of the things that would really break down that silo is if people in our shoes, as well as sales, right, reciprocate back to us and say, hey, I know you spent an hour with our team. Could you give me another 30-minute session on that value prop messaging, right? And I think if we start to build that relationship, you're going to see the silo break down naturally, where it's not such a transactional relationship, but it's a real team camaraderie and seeing how can we help, how can we enable, where am I really struggling at in terms of closing sales? Is it really that I don't have enough at bats? Am I not getting enough at bats? Or is the pitcher constantly throwing me 95-mile-an-hour fastballs that I can't hit, and I need more, soft tosses, right?
Can you redo the same analogy but with hockey terms?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So instead of trying to save a goal or score
Throwing you a curveball here.
you've got Patrick Waugh in the net, or you've got Eric Holland in the net. Like I want Eric Holland in the net while I'm trying to score a goal instead of Patrick Waugh in there, right? So hopefully that was a little bit closer.
Amazing. It was almost on point.
Thank you for listening to We're Not Marketers. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, review our podcast, and share this episode with other PMMs. Thanks again, and see you soon.